and welcome to another Sunday photo editing extravaganza. If you watch Drag Race at all with RuPaul, you know, extravaganza. They say that a lot. So I'm a big fan of that show. Anyways, today we're going to be doing iconic spots or locations. I switched it around because I can't tell you why yet, but we're going to be doing people next week. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I have switched them. So we are doing iconic places today, and it doesn't get much more iconic than the Taj Mahal. So I put a call out on our Facebook group yesterday, and a lot of you came through with a bunch of great images. So I don't have to use any of mine. I can pull mine in if you want to see some, but I would rather do your images. So let's see who is here already. Janelle was here bright and early before I was, I think. She was here like 15 minutes ago. So welcome, Stephanie, Vivian. Stephanie, I got some of your images as well. Marsha, I'm not sure I've seen you here before. If this is a new live, if this is your first time attending, please let us know in the chat. Put a number 1 in the chat right now to let us know if this is your first time attending this live, and I would like to welcome you personally. Lee, St. Louis. So we've got a couple from St. Louis, so you and Vivian could get together. Karen, Holly, yay, you made it. Marguerite, Debbie, of course, Rob from the basement. So Rob, for those of you who are new, is my husband and webmaster, and he has his office in the basement. So he's coming to you from below, from down under. Trish is in a different down under. I don't see Trish yet. Marty, Stephanie. I was doing people today originally, Stephanie, but we switched it around. And I'll just give you a small hint as to why, because we're doing our weekly December special right now for Digital Photo Mentor. Our version of a Black Friday, we're doing like December event, a December promotion, and we're doing people next week because it goes along with our promotion for next week. So that's why I switched it up. And I hadn't thought about that when we scheduled them. So it was a little bit of just hindsight on our part. I'm gonna guess your name pronunciation. Please tell me if I get this wrong. Jorgen, from Denmark. Welcome. Awesome. Daniel, I think I've seen you before. Mike is back. Mike is in the house. Marsha, first time. Awesome. Well, welcome. If you are looking to improve your photo editing, you are in the right place. So we usually just spend a couple of minutes at the beginning, welcoming everybody and waiting for people to trickle ahead. And I think we've got that now. A few more people still trickling in. Awesome. Ronald from Germany. So we're picking up some Europeans. That's great. So continue to, chat in the side there, and I'm going to hop over. I do my photo editing in myself. Lightroom is my primary editor, and then I use Photoshop and Luminar and sometimes Topaz, less and less Topaz because Luminar is getting more functionalities. I use those as plugins for Lightroom and Photoshop, okay? But when you submit your images for editing, so these are all subscriber submitted images from people like yourselves that I'm going to show you how I would approach editing your image and what I would do to it. I've also been working on some Luminar presets. So I demonstrate with both Lightroom and Luminar and occasionally Photoshop if we need to go to Photoshop. So I am going to change my screen because Rob always tells me I forget to change my screen, and there we go. Okay, so before I start, I mentioned that we are having a December sale. Every week we have something different on special, and this week it's our Luminar Neo course and our editing bundle that goes along with Luminar Neo. So that comes with 2 sky packs, 2 bokeh packs, and 2 texture overlay packs, or you can buy all of them together as this bundle here. So I'll leave you with that. Rob's going to put a link to that in the chat. Thanks so much, Stephanie. That's an awesome testimonial. We've got lots of my students here that show up every week because they know what value there is in learning and continuing learning. I'm always learning things myself as well. even in photography, believe it or not, after 35 years, I'm still learning things. Okay, so let me head back to Lightroom. So I've got quite a few images, and I actually already did one of Trisha's, but I'm going to wait to see if she shows up because I want to surprise her with the edit. But I want to show you a few that I've been working on in Luminar with my presets, because my presets are for black and white portraits, but they work well on any type of image. Okay, so let's start with Lightroom. And Kelly says she works in either Lightroom or Photoshop. So I've just tagged everybody's images in the program of their choice. So I want to start with this one of yours, Stephanie. Tell me again where this one is. I think you put it in your notes when you sent the submission, but if you're could tell me again, is this St. Petersburg? Okay, and she says, I want to know how to separate the water from the fountains from the gray, overcast, overexposed sky. Okay, so let me see what I can do about that. And she says, yes. Okay, so this is Peter Hoff Palace, St. Petersburg. Wow, that's fantastic. You can talk about that with Rob in the chat, because Russia is someplace that he said he would like to go. So convince me, because I'm not convinced as of yet. That's not on my list, but convince me. This sure looks interesting, that's for sure. Okay, so let's do our usual. Let's start in Lightroom by changing the camera profile. And you get to that in the develop module up here in the basic panel. Just click the little 4 squares up here, and you'll see the camera matching profiles if you've shot a raw file and sent me a raw file, which Stephanie did. So let me just get that on the screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, so she's using a Canon. That's a CR2 file. Okay. And we can choose from these camera profiles. So I always kind of go through these first just to see if there's one that really stands out. And look at landscape. Look at how much that brings the gold out. So I'm going to start with that one. Okay. Because sometimes you can get halfway there just by changing the camera profile. All right, now let's deal with some tonality stuff. Okay, so she mentioned the bright sky. So the first thing I'm going to do when we look up here in the histogram, so Rob's going to get busy sharing links in the chat. So I want you to share the one on why is my snow gray, because it talks about the histogram. So what we know about it is there's white on the right and light tones right below that. So this is indicating there's a lot of bright tones. It's not clipping, meaning it's not off the chart overexposed. Okay, so I've turned on the clipping warnings, and the only thing that's clipping is right here. Can you see that red mark? Right, that means that it's clipping. That's that J keyboard shortcut. Okay, Rob, are you getting those links? So why is my snow gray and Lightroom keyboard shortcuts already? So I'm going to pull the highlights down, but you can also do it from the histogram. So I don't often demonstrate this, but if you just hover your mouse over the histogram, see how it changes into the cursor with the double arrow, right? So if you click and grab there, it will affect those tones, and you'll notice that the white slider is moving, right? I expected highlights to move, but let's just move one over. Okay, if I go there, highlights moves. See that? Okay, so I was in the top area. I moved the whites down and the highlights. Now notice that when I move the highlights down, the clipping disappears there. I'm going to leave the whites at 0 and take the highlights down even further. Right? I don't want to go too far with this because what happens is you end up, like if I bring these highlights all the way down and the whites all the way down, we end up with this really flat looking image, okay? Because what we're doing right now is global edits, which means on the entire image. And I'm going to adjust the sky separately. So I'm going to leave the whites where they are. And we can also use the Alt-Option click method to check clippings. So when you hold Alt-Option down, it shows you clippings. You can see that bit that right there that's clipping that we knew was clipping. And I'm just going to raise the whites a little bit until it starts clipping. So right there, okay? Then I want to brighten the midsection, okay? So again, I can hover over the histogram and the midtones, watch which slider moves, okay? So if you don't believe me that midtones is the exposure slider, look what's happening, okay? So that one is moving. Now that I've done that, I need to bring the white down again. Okay, so it's that dance of exposure editing. It's a dance of photo editing, right? So I bring the highlights down, brought the exposure up, and then I need to bring the whites back down a little bit more. I usually do clarity to about 14 or 15, sort of on this kind of thing. You can get away with more clarity than on a person photo. If you go too much, you end up getting this really sort of crunchy look. And if that's what you're looking for, great. But I want to just keep it a little more natural. Okay, you can see a little bit of clipping right there. I'm not too concerned about that. It's a highlight. That's fine. Okay, and that's actually going to help us bring the water out from the fountains, which is what she wanted to do. You know, I also feel like the image is tipping a little bit. Okay, it feels like it's leaning over a little bit. So I'm going to check to see if it's crooked. But I also want to do lens corrections to make sure that we have the camera profile applied and chromatic aberration, because I am seeing a little bit of chromatic aberration here. Just a little bit. It's not a lot. See, there's a tiny green fringe around there. And see if I zoom in a little bit more. Right? You can see it here. Red on this side, green on that side. Can you see it? And if I just check this box, fixed. Voila. Okay. Let me do it again. Okay, watch the drain pipe right here. Okay, I'm looking for a red and green fringe on either side. Can you see it now? See how it also makes the image sharper? It's kind of like it's misaligned, which is exactly what's happening. The colors which make up an image as red, green, and blue are not equally aligned. So they're not totally sharp, and remove chromatic aberration helps fix that. Usually it's a lens issue, but it's really easily fixed with that checkbox, right? If I check profile corrections, it's going to correct for any rectilinear distortion. So from a 22 millimeter lens, right? See if we can see what's happening there. It's just correcting a little bit, and also corrected the corners, okay? So sometimes you'll get dark corners, okay? So when I apply a vignette, I won't get that black corner look, okay? So correcting the tilt, I'm actually going to try transform instead of the crop tool. Okay, so I'm just going to hit auto and see what it does. Okay, so it corrected up and down. It's not bad. Let's just see if I do level. Okay, so it straightened side to side versus everything. So I like the one that it's doing with auto, but we're losing the top of the fountain a little bit and the bottom down here. So I can correct that to a certain degree, right? Like this. Make sure we have constrained crop on without going so far as to lose too much of the image. Okay. Now I've lost the top. See that? So I'm going to pull it back. I just opened the crop tool with the keyboard shortcut. Pull it back a little bit. So I've got a little bit more image at the bottom. I'm trying to keep the top of the building and the bottom here and straighten it a little bit. Okay. That looks good to me. Okay. Now there's a couple of things. It looks like there's something over here. So I'm going to clone that out. Let's change that to 100%. So I'm going to get the clone tool, which is Q on my keyboard shortcut. And the Lightroom one actually does a pretty good job now. Make sure I paint all the way over it. And I'm using the content aware one. You can see that it actually did a decent job. And if you're not happy with it, you can try refresh. And it just picks something different to put there. But look at that, right? Don't need to go to Photoshop. Did a good job, and it lined up the lines of the concrete there. Okay, so we got that. All right, so now let's come back to basic. We've got some straightening done. We've got some tone control done. Let's see how our color is. It looks a little bit off to me, but I'm not sure what color it is yet. So I think maybe it's a little magenta. Right, because these statues, see how if we add magenta, the statues are more pink, and I want to go somewhere in here. I feel like this should be more green a little bit. And see how that greens up the grass too. See that? So just a little bit, and maybe a little more yellow. So just warming it up a little bit. So where we're at so far is before and after. Now it's too green. Let's go a little bit more. Okay, there we go. All right, now what else would I do here? I mentioned global versus local edits. Okay, so local edits are using the masking tools. So let's do a mask on the sky, because I definitely want to darken the sky and see if there's any kind of detail there at all that we can bring out. So I'm going to bring the highlights way down. Yeah, see, it's gray. So that's the challenge with overcast skies is if you bring the density down, and it's also picking up the water. So it's having a hard time distinguishing between the water and the sky. So I think what I'm going to do here instead is actually take this one to Luminar, or we could try it in Photoshop, okay, if you don't have Luminar, and try and do a sky replacement, right? Let's see. I think the only other thing I'm going to do is just add a little edge vignette. Okay, so this is a preset in my Lightroom presets collection. I'm going to be making more, and all that does, if I undo for you, is goes to the effects panel and adjusts these sliders for me. Okay, so I did a survey in my Facebook group. Some of you are members there. If you could please share a link to the Facebook group, Rob, the DPM Facebook group. I did a survey about how many presets is enough and how many is too many. And the general consensus was 12 or less. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. Quite a few people chose up to 25, but definitely over 25. People don't want that many, right? So as a general rule, less presets are what is people desired. And you can see that under my favorites, I've got very few here in Lightroom. I do a couple that I have, a portrait retouch one that I made, a couple of vignettes, and then mask, subject, and background. Okay, so literally all that does is adds a mask to the subject and the background without actually doing anything to them. So when I click that preset, it's made the masks for me and named them, right? And if I click on one, for example, I can see that it's chosen part of the statues and this step here as the subject. So if I wanted to bring that out a little bit more, right, I could brighten the statues. Okay, so now I'm just brightening that part and maybe give it a little bit more clarity, which gives it more punch. And let's see what that's doing. See how that's just brightening up that section, right? Now, have we gone too far? Seems so, because I'm getting too much white clipping. Okay. The other way we can do a selection, there's a number of different ways you can do a mask selection, right? Let's try brightening it this way instead. There we go. That's better. Another way you can do a mask selection is by color or by tone. Okay, so if I want to, for example, just select the gold tones, I can do, actually, I can do that another way with the new tools in Lightroom. Let's try it this way first, actually. So I'm going to close the mask, and I'm going to go to this new color mixer tool. So it used to be called HSL. It used to be called the HSL panel. That's still here under one of the tabs under mixer, but now there's this new point color section. Okay, so I can click on a color, for example, this gold, and then fine tune which color I'm going to affect with these adjustments. I'm going to click visualize. Okay, now you can see that it's got kind of some gray areas still in the statue. So it's showing the color that are being affected. So I'm going to increase it to include some darker colors. Okay, see that? See, that's picking up more of the statue. Okay. I could also say, show me some more saturated colors. And now I've got most of the gold. So that's just the stuff that's been selected. I haven't done anything to it yet. So that's just the selection process. Now I can brighten using the luminance slider. Okay, so I'm going to brighten it a little bit. I can give it more saturation or less. Let's punch it just a little bit. And we can also shift the color. If I feel like it's too red, we could go a little bit this direction and make it more gold. See that? So going a little bit to the green side takes away that red tint. So let me show you what that's doing. See that? Brightening the golds and shifting the color. So this new tool I think is absolutely brilliant, right? Because I could do a second point and select the darker yellows. For example, let's say I don't want to highlight the building as much. Okay, so let's say I'm going to just make sure that I'm selecting just the building. So I'm going to shift this over so I'm only having the darker areas. Let's go all the way this way. Okay, we're trying to get rid of the statues. And let's see. Oh, there we go. Got most of it there. See that? So I'm shifting more. So I've got mostly just the building and this part here. Okay, so now I've got a different section of the yellows. And in this one, I'm actually going to lower the saturation because I don't want so much yellow showing in here, and maybe even darken it a bit. So I really want the fountain to be the focus. Okay, so let's turn that off and see what it's doing. So there's our before and after. Okay, so it's brightening part of the building while darkening this part and brightening the fountain and the golds. Okay. So that's another way to do a selection. If I want to do the selection with a mask instead, you can use color range and do something similar. So I could just say, okay, I want this kind of gold, but it gives me less options for being specific in terms of pinpointing what I want to affect. Okay? But both work. Right? We've also got the background selected. Okay, so if I want to darken everything else, right, maybe I want to not darken the water so much, but let's say I want to take the water out of this selection. So I'm going to go subtract from this mask. So I'm subtracting from this mask, which is the background, and I'm using one called object. And then what you do is you literally just draw over the objects you want to select, and it adds that or subtracts it to your mask accordingly. See, it didn't do a great job there. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to undo that and try it again. So I'm going to go subtract, object, and then maybe I'll just get a slightly smaller brush. I don't want it to get the sky. See how it's getting the sky a little too much? So we've got that halo. And I'm just going to get the water here. I could use a smaller brush up there. Okay, we're getting closer. Let's do one more. I want to get this one as well. So this is how I'm highlighting the water a little bit more, right? That one worked better. And then I'm just going to add the sky back in. So let's see if it does a good job. No, it's not doing a great job there. So I think I'm going to have to do brush. So you can add and subtract from your mask. And I'm just going to do auto mask. And then when I paint, it should find the edge. See that? There we go. Okay, so I want the water brightened, but not the sky. And I'm painting with a lower opacity. Let's go even lower. So I want to get some of this white bits in here. Let's see how that looks. Something like that. Okay, so if I turn the mask off, that's a little better. Still not perfect. I would do a little bit more refinement on there, but let's see what that's doing. So it's darkening the background, right? I could paint in a bit more stuff in here too, or I could even just do a radial gradient over the middle. Where's my radial gradient? There we go. So I'm just doing a radial gradient. So remember, I'm still subtracting from this background mask. Often, see how many variations I have here, or amendments to the original mask. So original mask was just background, and then I minused some objects, painted back in with a brush, and then minused this radial gradient. So what our final mask looks like is that. Okay, so everything that's red is being darkened, right? If I want more of the middle part included in the radial gradient, I just have to make it bigger. Okay, like that. So now when I turn it off, let's see our before and after. So see how that's working to bring those things out in the foreground? Okay. It might be a little oversaturated at this point, so I'm just going to dial it back a tiny bit. Okay, now I want to deal with that sky, right? Now, replacing a sky is tricky because you want to make sure that you get a proper, really good sky. I'm kind of not crazy about this mask here. I really want to brush this in so it's not so white. Sometimes I brush with the mask turned on, right? And right now I've got the mask turned off. You can do that with the O key. Okay, that means overlay. Okay, so I've turned the overlay off so that I can visually see where I'm painting with this brush. Because I don't like that halo that's going on around there. Okay? Something like that. That's better. Okay, so a halo, if you're not familiar with that term, is when you have something that's dark and something that's light together, and the dark thing has like this little white sort of outline around it. And that indicates to people looking at that image that it's been manipulated, and you want to avoid that, right? She says it was a very gray morning. Okay, so now, would you rather me do this one in Photoshop or in Luminar, Stephanie? Do you have Luminar Neo? Hey, Edward, good to see you. We have a delay on the broadcast, so she says either. Okay, so I'm going to go straight to Luminar then. So I'm going to go and edit in, and because I'm only doing a couple of finishing touches in Luminar, I would, if I want to, well, I'll take it through Photoshop for you then, so you can see the full process. If you want to do a full non-destructive editing workflow, this is what you want to do. Okay, so you right-click, choose Edit In, and open as Smart Object in Photoshop. So even though I'm going to do the sky replacement in Neo, I'm going to open it in Photoshop first because that interim step allows me to save the Luminar Neo edits in a way that I can get back to them and make changes. If I take the image directly from Lightroom to Luminar, we can't do that, okay? So while I wait for that to open, there we go. Any questions about that? Because that's something that I get asked a lot, actually. When we do that interim step to Photoshop, which is now opening, okay, it adds Luminar as a filter or a smart filter. If I just take it directly from Lightroom to Luminar, I come back to Lightroom with a TIFF that's been edited, and the edits from Luminar are cooked in. Okay, so that's the main difference. Okay, here we are. I've got some layers. All right, let me just get rid of some of these things here. I don't need all these tools on here for you guys to see. All right, so let's just make this a little bigger. All right, so now we can see that we've got a layer here, and see this little thing on the bottom? That means it's a smart object, okay? So if I choose to apply a filter, which I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to use Luminar as a filter, okay? We could also use the generative fill, which we have in Photoshop and in Luminar. So when we're in Photoshop, the new version, we have this generative fill, okay? So if I wanted to add something down here, we could, right? Let's just see just for well, the expression, the expression is, you know, poop. Let's use a different word, a different word for poop and giggles, right? Let's just say I wanted to add a palace guard in a red uniform. Okay, so if I make a selection and just do like this, right, inside of Photoshop, and you could do this with the new Gen Swap in Luminar. It's not developed as much yet, so I don't know if I can get it to add a thing. It's not designed to add a thing. It's designed to change it. So we could change this statue into something else, right? Let's just say Royal Palace. And the more descriptive you can get with your prompts here in Photoshop, if you're using, this is generative AI, the more descriptive you can get with your prompts, the better object you'll get added. Okay, so Royal Palace Guard, red uniform, white hat. Let's see what kind of hat he's gonna get with a feather. Okay, let's see what I get. And then I'm going to hit enter. Okay. And if it comes up and gives you an error, sometimes it'll tell you you can't generate that thing. It won't let you generate something that's violent or against copyright. Well, that's not a white feather. And he looks like he's going to the circus, but you know, we got something, right? He looks like he's from Mexico. That looks like an Aztec guy. So let's change the prompt. Okay, so let's try it again. Royal Palace Guard. European. Let's say European. European. Royal Palace Guard. Red uniform. Let's just say hat with a feather. So hat with a feather. Now, I didn't say that he had a gun or a sword or anything like that, because if I say that, they might deem that as violent, because they don't want you to be generating. That's against the terms of Photoshop's uses. Okay, so now we're getting closer. This looks like more like a palace guard, right? Oops. So people are talking a lot about Luminar's Gen Swap and the crazy things that it's doing. Well, what do you think that is? That's certainly not a guard, right? I don't know. Well, now we've got his butt. Okay, so that's interesting. Photoshop is not great at generating people either. Okay. You know, maybe if we say, okay, he's walking away from us, we get a better, you know, generation here. But none of these are great, right? So this was just a fun exercise. I'm just going to undo these guys. So let's get to Luminar, right? So to get to Luminar from here, we go Filter and Skylum Software, and then Luminar Neo. So while that's opening, hey Todd, yeah, that's a good idea. I could have added Buckingham Palace Guard as well. Nice to see you. I believe Todd attended our webinar on Friday, which was photography etiquette. And by the way, if you did attend that, Rob is working on the editing of that. So we should have that out. Tell us when we should have that, Rob. I think he's working on that this afternoon. Yes, we work Sunday. That's what happens when you're self-employed. You run your own business. So we've come here to do the sky replacement, right? So I'm going to go to edit and go down to Sky AI. Where are we? There we go. Now it's suggesting Milky Way. Okay, that's definitely not what I want to add here. So like I said, remember you want a sky that is appropriate. So I'm going to start with our sky pack, which is number 1. Both of these sky packs are in that ultimate editing bundle, by the way. So if you want to share that again, Rob, just the link to the sales page for our December sale. So both of these sky packs are in there. Okay, I'm going to try one of these and see. I want something that's overcast, but with some texture, right? We have to wait for it to sort of pop in. Come on, you can do it, Luminar. Okay, so to see what I mean? So Stephanie said it's a gray day, and this is not working because it wouldn't be that bright sunny. Okay. This one is actually not bad. That one is actually not bad. But you don't want to put in, you know, a sunset if we know that it's morning, for example, and we don't want to put in something that's not appropriate. I see so many different things, you know, like this kind of stuff where it just doesn't work, right? Being shared online, because the sun actually that's kind of neat. It's kind of highlighting. We can actually work with that maybe, but I see a lot of this kind of thing where you'll see a sky that just absolutely does not work. Okay. I want to make sure that this thing is in the right place first. Okay, so see where it knows that the sky has to go all the way down to here, but the problem is it's coming over the building too much. It's replacing see how it's going over the water? Okay. We're going to have to solve that with some masking. Okay, so I want to make sure it's down far enough. Right. And let's put it over here. So it looks like it's kind of coming through the water, right? But you'll notice that if you do something like this, you'd have shadows on the ground, right? And that's what indicates it doesn't fit, right? This is not a shadow, right? That's a reflection. There's a big difference. So this one's not working. Let me try something. I'm looking for clouds, and I'm looking for, I've got this one that's California clear skies, and it's just color. Okay, so sometimes this is a good idea, right? Just to put in something that's not pure white, right? You want to just get rid of the white problem. So I'm going to go with a bluish sky, and now you can really see what's happening. It's covering over top of the water. Okay, so this is how you fix it. The mask refinement tools. Okay, so global, when you bring global up, anything that's in the sky, see how it covers the water more now that I'm at 100%. If I go to 0, okay, now I'm getting less issues in the water in the building, but we're getting some gaps, right? So to fix that, we can do close gaps. Okay, so it's going to come in on those edges. And let's do fixed details. Let's see if that helps. So we kind of have to do this balance between the three. So close gaps brings those white parts closer. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. So I'm going to do a tiny bit more global, but I don't want it over the building. So as soon as I start seeing it coming over, now I see it over the water again. See that? Let's just fix the water. I want this water to show and not be blue, but I don't want this water to be blue. So we're trying to find this, what's the right balance of these sliders? And it may just be that this is a tricky subject. Give it a second to blend. This is a tricky subject. I'm curious to see if Photoshop does any better, actually. That's not bad. I mean, we can go in and do masking with the masking tool, but it becomes really challenging when you're dealing with water like this. Sky adjustments is going to help also, and scene relighting. So if I bring the relight strength down, see how that makes the whole thing blue, right? So relight applies more blue down here. So if I bring that to 0, that helps, right? And we don't want any reflections, right? So I'm going to use atmospheric haze, which just softens the look of the sky, okay? Because I just want a little bit of color. I want it to be more subtle. And let's see if we even brighten it a little bit. Something in that range. We're getting close, okay? So see how it's just subtle now? Just a little bit of color. And what I could do is just mask it a little bit better on the water. Let's see if I can get another one that looks a little better. Let's try a softer color one. Oops. It's relighting. Let's see about this one. Yeah, that one's not super colorful, is it? That's not bad. It just gives a hint of color, right? I still haven't found the perfect sky. Sometimes finding the right sky is the trickiest part. Dramatic. See, everything is dramatic. We don't want twilight. Peaceful sky. Yeah, see, we're going to get fluffy clouds. Actually, that's not bad. Okay, something like that helps us blend in here a little better as well. So it's not perfectly pure blue. That's actually not bad. Let's try a few more of these. Okay, so see how trying and different, that's actually better. Right, so look at that. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. And I'm going to position it in a place where it blends the best with all the different areas. I'll try it flipped. Try it flipped that way. Yeah, that's too blue. Maybe some more wispy clouds. Where can I find some wispy clouds? I know where I can find wispy clouds. Some of these are built into Luminar. That one is a funny color. I always find that one is too cyan. But let's see if we can shift the color of it. No, not a fan of the color of that one. I think that one we had was the best one there. Where did I find that one? These ones I find really contrasty, too contrasty. If you're making your own skies, there's a good point to keep in mind is to not make them too contrasty. I find when I put these in here, there isn't a way to lower contrast. You can darken and brighten, but you can't lower the contrast. I think this is one of the ones I liked. All right, now we're back to where we kind of started. Somewhere in here. It was one of these, wasn't it? Remind me, did I click on one? That's not bad. Okay, so let's go with something like this. Just gives it a little bit of texture and blends a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to save this. So when I click apply, it's going to bring it back to Photoshop. Okay, we're spending a lot of time on this one today, but I think there's a lot of great tips in here. And so far, we're covering different things in terms of pulling out different features of this image. I've got some other great ones that I want to show you. Is Trish here today? Okay, so now we're back in Photoshop. Let me turn off the rulers. And you can see that it's applied it as a smart filter. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer. And then I'm going to turn off Luminar Neo on this layer, right? And I'm going to turn off the bottom layer. So they're still there, right? They're still there. But what I want to do is I want to see if I can do a sky replacement with Photoshop and see how much I use it. I don't even know where it is. So I literally have to do a search. Okay, so sky replacement is under edit. Okay, so I was finding it. There we go. Okay, so let's do a sky replacement with Photoshop. And the challenge with Photoshop is it doesn't give you that nice library that you can view, right? It does. Okay, so I did put some in here. All right, so let's try this one. That's not bad that it's selected. And these options we have for blending. So we've got the same problem, right? So let's see how Photoshop does if we can blend it any better. So we can change the scale. We can flip it. That's better. Okay, so that's sky adjustments. We can make it brighter. We can change the color. Foreground adjustments. Okay, so that's our issue here, right? So lighting mode, multiply or screen. We have a blend mode. Okay, so screen, and it's not blending well there or there. Okay, so let's just see what we can do. No, there's a few more sliders here, but I'm not seeing it really doing anything here. Foreground lighting. No, none of these things are working great to get the water. So I'm not having any more success here in Photoshop than I did in Luminar. So I'm doing shift edge so it gets that edge to the building here, but then it's over top there. So, and then this isn't a click to return it. See how I'm just kind of checking a little bit. Fade edge. Let's do that. Keep going this way till we get less of that halo. That's that halo I was talking about. But it's still over the water. And it's not really letting me do anything about it. So I'm going to just brighten it a little bit. And really, I can output this to a new layer. Okay, so it's going to go on a new layer. So there's the sky and the mask. Okay, so the whole sky replacement thing. And to fix the water, I have to go in and do more masking. So I think actually right out of the gate, Luminar did a better job. Right. So I'm just going to turn that off, turn that back on. So there's our Luminar result without having to paint in any masking. Okay. Now to get back to Lightroom, I'm just going to do save and close. So save, not save as. I talk about this before. I talk about this a lot. Not save as. Okay. Yeah, the shadows did almost match in that replacement, but I still didn't feel like it fit well. Just something like this where, we've got some puffy clouds. I think this one blends a lot better. So you have to find the right sky. And sometimes looking through libraries of them is the only way to do that. If a photograph is just sky and used to replace another sky in Luminar Neo, do I have to turn it into a JPEG first? Yes. So if you're making your own sky replacements, Marguerite, you definitely need to edit your sky, and then save it as a JPEG, and then you can put it into your own custom library. I can show you how to do that when we go to Luminar directly. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that in Luminar. I did recognize Tetons. Yeah, I've not been to Tetons, but I did recognize that barn. Yeah, for sure. And I think Edward sent some from Yellowstone as well. Or was it Yellowstone, or what park did you send from, Edward? Yeah, speed editing. We need to do like speed dating, like speed editing. Okay, take care, Karen. We'll see you. Okay, so now Photoshop is closed and we're back to Lightroom and we've got the finished image. Okay. So there's the original and there's our edited version in Lightroom. Okay. So once again, I'll do it again, full screen. So let's do another one, full before and after. So I'm going to go make a virtual copy. That was Command apostrophe. I'm going to hit reset. Okay. So now I'm just going to put that at the beginning over here. I'm just changing the order of them. Okay, so now let's look at these side by side. Okay, so the left one is the original. The right one is Lightroom. And let me get this one here. Then our next progression is, oops. oops. What have I done? There we go. Okay. Okay, let's look at this is what's called this is what's called command view. No, I forgot what this is called now, for heaven's sake. No, what am I doing? I've lost my train of thought now. Okay, compare mode. Sorry, compare mode. And I want these unstacked, so they keep stacking themselves up. So what I want to compare is the beginning one. So compare. Beginning is left. Lightroom on the right. And then finally our Luminar finished edit. Right? So Lightroom, Luminar. There we go. Okay. Yes, I recognize this one for sure as Tetons. Yep, absolutely. All right, so that was a good edit. Let's take a look at some directly in Luminar. Oh, Yosemite. That's the park Edward sent. Yeah, this is Half Dome, I believe, at Yosemite, because he sent a few from there. Yep. Okay, so let me hop over to Lightroom or to Luminar because Trish sent this one and I recognize the place that this is Trinidad in Cuba, if you've ever been there. Rob knows this place as well. I think I even know what street this is on, right? Also Trinidad, just further up, I believe. Definitely Cuba. May not be Trinidad, but definitely Cuba, okay? Trinidad for sure. So I've edited this one already in Luminar and I want to show you what I did. So what I did was I actually applied one of my new portrait presets, and then I made some edits. Okay, so I want you to see this one. Okay, I will do Yosemite. I wanted to see this one because that's what I did. Now I did not take out the power lines. We could try that and see if the erase tool takes them out, but I don't know. It's kind of framing this church steeple, the bell tower, and I kind of like them actually. So I'm going to try taking out the power lines with the automatic removal. The textures and overlay, which is on a layer over here. Okay, that was actually part of the preset that I'm creating. So the texture came along with it, and then I did some edits to the texture. So let's just see if it removes those power lines. I think I'm going to want to keep them though. What do you guys think? Do a little quick vote in the chat while Luminar is thinking about it. Power lines in or out? Okay, so it removed them. For the most part, that's actually pretty amazing. Let me turn off this layer for a moment. I'm just going to hide the texture layer. But look what this is doing. Okay, our texture layer should go away in a second. But look at that. It did a fantastic job of all these power lines. And part of the reason why I didn't take them out is that otherwise these poles are there for no reason. Like, why are there poles there, right? So partly it's a little bit weird, right? So if anything, I want to leave this one, right? So I kind of need to see where it is. So I'm just going to, I'm holding down the backslash key while I paint, and I'm going to restore that. So I put those power lines back, right? Because otherwise those poles don't make any sense. If I want to clean up this part, and you can see it does show in the sky. It's not perfect, but it did a pretty good job. Look at that. Look at that mess. Even over here too, right? So that's why it took its time, right? Doing its thing. So if you want to do a perfect job, you want to come in and get all of these little bits as well, and then go over this part again and so on. But honestly, I think I prefer it with the power lines. Okay. Let's see what everybody else is saying. Certainly part of the culture and the daily life. Yeah. They complement the other power lines, adds to reality. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it seems like the vote is keep them. Okay, so we tried it and it worked pretty well, and we could definitely clean this up, right? So if we want to, do a better job here, right, you just have to zoom in and run the erase a couple more times. Now, people could also try the gen erase on this. We could try gen erase and see if it does a better job. But in this case, I'm going to leave the power lines. Okay. Now you can see what the overlay is doing. Okay, so it says texture overlay. So what I've done here is a black and white conversion, right, using the preset that I'm creating. And I'll show you the preset. And then I just used this layer of texture overlay, which was part of the preset, right? And you can edit these layers separately. Okay, so I've changed the blend mode to soft light on this one. So you can make it a little bit more subtle if you want. And then you can also edit it. Okay, so just to show you what's happening on this one, right? So that's the texture alone. As I applied it in the preset, it's actually pink, right? So when I added it, I wanted this one to be more bluish. So I created a dark vignette on the actual overlay, added some structure, and then added a mood, a blue tone, to give it more of a bluish duotone. Okay? Or we could keep it just black and white, more like that. Keep it a little more subtle. Right? So there's our before and after. And I think the texture works really well with the scene, right? As does the black and white. So even though this is a really colorful scene, black and white I like. It's something, it says classic. It says, old world, right? Which is what I think of when I think of Cuba. Right. So let me show you the preset that I used to make that. I'm going to grab Trisha's other image. right? And these are all in progress right now. So I've been testing these for the last 3 days. And again, they're meant to go on portraits, but it doesn't mean you can't use them on other things. So I've applied some of the portrait tools in these presets, like skin smoothing and stuff like that. But if there's no people in your image, it just won't recognize or apply them, okay? So when we hover over, you can see what these presets are doing. So I've got one that I'm currently calling Golden Glow, soft black and white, and the one that I applied on Trisha's other image was the Antique Grunge. Greedy black and white is just extra sharp and contrasty. Okay, light matte adds kind of a light vignette on the edges. One that adds grain, which is kind of neat in this case. One that's bright. This is made for glamour, so if it's got people in it, it smooths the skin a lot. Right? This one is actually kind of neat because it's like faded. Right? This one's got a zoom on the edge, so burgundy toning and a zoom on the edge, and then a blue tone. Right? I'm not crazy about any of these on this particular image. Maybe grain, right? And then it's a little dark. So the way that a way that presets work, and one of the questions that like I said, I asked in the Facebook group, maybe do the survey here, Rob. How many options can you give them in a poll in YouTube? How many options can you give them? If you can do a poll with 4, do the same options that I did on the other poll or the one that's on the community right now. If you can only do 3, then just say no presets, up to 12 or 25 plus. So something like that. Up to 20 or 25 plus. Okay, so with a preset, you can actually dial it down. Okay, so that's something you can't do so much with Lightroom. You can edit each individual thing, which I can do here as well, but you can just dial it down. So if I want less grain, I'll just dial this to 85%. And then I'm going to go and check a couple of things in the edit. So we just go over to edit panel and look at what it's doing. Okay. One of the things I've noticed is it's lightening the car. So it's lightening blues. And I might want to do that opposite. I want to maybe do it darkening. Okay. So I can go all the way back to the beginning and go to develop. Okay, now it's develop raw. So she sent me a raw file, so it applies on a raw file. I'm going to start by brightening the whole thing a little bit and bring the highlights down. I don't think we're going to pick up that sky, but that's okay. Right? Then I'm going to check color harmony because again, this one is designed for a portrait. So it's designed to bring out yellows and oranges, but I might want to switch it and do the blues or the greens. So see how that's giving the car a bit more contrast? Again, skin smoothing, it doesn't apply, so you can just ignore it. Same thing with the face. Dramatic is giving us a lowered contrast or an increased contrast with less color. The vignette, maybe I'll go a little darker, something like that. I would crop this one as well because there's a lot of foreground here. Now this one is darkening again. And I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to undo what's happening here with the develop. We can skip portrait bokeh. I've found that sometimes with a preset, even though there's no portrait, even though there's no person in here, it's still applying this bokeh in the background, which is odd. So I'm just going to turn that off. I've got a little bit of blur on the edges on this one. Another vignette. And so see how I'm layering the edits. Okay, so it's on one layer, but I'm layering the edits. Okay, now this is what's happening here. Okay, so I've brightened yellows and I want to darken the blues. Actually, the car, see that? The car is cyan. So we can brighten the car or darken the car. So we can control the tones, right? Because the original color image, those are the colors that we're affecting when we pull these sliders. Okay. I added some details. I added some glow. This one was Orton Effect. And Orton Effect is actually really great on portraits. I do that a lot on my portraits. But if you want a street scene to have a bit more grunge, you might want to turn that one off. Okay. So it's just as simple as, undoing it or just turn it down. you can leave it there and then just turn it down. And the same with grain. You know, maybe you want the grain, maybe you want more, or maybe you want less. So it's just a few tweaks and off you go. Okay, so this is kind of a finished image that I might end up with, and then just do a little crop. Let's see what Luminar thinks is a good crop. Because there's a lot of neat things going on here between the car and this lady. I want to keep her in. Let's balance her with the car. I kind of like that idea. I do like Luminar's cropping to keep that stone building on the side over there. Let's do something like that. So less foreground. When you have more foreground or part in front of your subject, right? It means it makes the viewer feel more than feel farther away from the image, farther away from the subject. Okay. So there's a poll in our community tab. Maybe you can link to that, Rob. There is a link you can put for that. We'd love to track that. And if you're voting, Calvin, vote on the poll that should be here in the live. So do vote on the poll as well as on our community tab in our YouTube channel. So far, most people are enjoying less than 12. Okay, so that's how you can use a preset in Luminar to get certain look. And actually, presets can help you develop your own style. So let's say you buy a set of presets or you have a set of presets and you edit them like I've done here. You could save this as a new one, right? So you can just do save as preset and give it a name, right? So maybe this is your version of the grainy one with it dialed down a little bit to your taste. So you might call it low grainy or whatever, something. I like to call my presets practical names so that I know what they're doing. A lot of presets that you might buy or download, find they give these bizarre names like names of songs, or I don't know, Fido's bone or something. A dog made me think of that. And how do you know what that's going to do? So I tend to name my presets what they're going to do, right? So when you look at the names of my presets in here, right? Blue gold tone. What is that going to do? What do you think? Pretty straightforward, right? And I haven't landed on these names yet, so maybe you guys can even help me, right? So I've got to come up with some names for these things. Okay, so Danelle has an opposite opinion. Using just 5 presets limits your options and creations. So do you mean you want more presets or you don't want to use them at all, Danelle? Right, so there's pros and cons of presets for sure. Sometimes it gets you to an end result faster. And sometimes it shows you something that you might not have considered doing with a particular image. So sometimes browsing through the Luminar ones gives you ideas, right? Okay, so you want more presets. Okay, cool. Thank you for logical and informational names for my presets. You're welcome. Because you know why I did that? Because I have other people's sets and they make no sense. I don't get it. You know, even some of the Luminar ones. If we look in here, okay, so big screen. Travelogue, Softbox, Bar Noir, Sunshine, Dark Forest, and Cold Frame. They kind of give us an idea, you know, Cold Frame. Okay, it's blue. Actually looks kind of nice in this image. Dark Forest, what does that tell us? Nothing. Sunshine, I'm guessing something orangey. Bar Noir, okay, I'm guessing black and white. Something soft. And what is Travelogue? You know, so yeah, the names don't tell me anything. Makes me crazy. So that's why I did that, because it makes me crazy. All right, so Rob wants me to do one from Yosemite. And I want to do one of these for Kelly's as well, because these ones here, these cathedrals are kind of neat too. And she wanted to know about taking out the people. So I kind of want to try Jenna Race on this one, right? So this is another, I seem to be on a black and white kick lately, but I go through phases. So I'm going to try the presets again, because I think the black and white that one of the ones that I created here will be nice, possibly even the one with the texture. But there is some sky here to work with, I think. So we can pull the detail out of that sky without replacing it. So that's how I decide, am I going to do a sky replacement? If there's nothing there and it's just like sludge, then I may do a sky replacement. But this one has some nice wispy clouds and some texture, so I don't think I would replace the sky here. And if you're going to do a sky replacement, again, pay attention to the direction of the light, right? So the light is coming from over here. You can see the shadow going this way, right? So please don't put a sun over here, right? Drives me insane seeing stuff like that in groups and online. And people, you need to just pay attention to direction of light. This is a great quote, Dano. Faster is not my goal. It's always to be more creative. I love that. I love it. I'm with you on that one. Okay, so I'm just going to hover over these. So this is my golden glow. So that's kind of cool, actually. The cathedral looks kind of neat in that one. It's even like picking up some nice detail, right? Soft. There's the antique one. Again, I think that kind of works. Okay, so it looks like a faded out antique photo, right? Gritty, that one would work well also with a little bit of tweaks because it's a little bright. So gritty just is extra textured. I added lots of detail and texture in this one. Okay, light edges, grainy. Yeah, I think of all of them. See how that's blurring the edges? I did that on purpose. I think the gritty one. So let's go with gritty. And if I dial it down, you can see that it lowers the contrast just a bit. So I'm going to start maybe about 90% with this one. Then I'm going to start at 100. I'm going to go and do it individually. So then I think we're half the way there, right? Because now we've done the edits and we can go back to develop raw, which is the bottom. Okay, so if you go all the way down to the bottom, and this is where I can adjust the histogram, adjust the highlights, so I can darken the whole thing a little bit and bring the highlights down. But I can also check to see what I've done on the preset. You see how I did bring the whites up? So even just undoing that and making sure that I've not got anything clipping, right? Because I know that the other steps in the preset are adding contrast. Okay, so I want to keep the highlights down, and look what that's doing to the sky. No reason to fix the sky here. And I'm just going to come down and make sure we've got, aha. Can you see the chromatic aberration again? See that little red outline here and this little green one on that side? So I'm going to click auto correction, et voila, it's gone. Okay, so it's just that simple. But make sure that if you are shooting raw, that you have this one checked off. Okay, I almost always come there and check that off. So now we can just move up the edits. Okay, so face obviously isn't going to apply. So I can just remove it if I want. Okay, and I'm removing it because if I want to save this as a new preset, I don't want that one in there. Okay, now I have the option of adjusting the black and white mix. Okay, so this is called a black and white mix. And how you adjust these sliders affects the original colors. Okay, so wherever there's yellow, which is the front here, okay, definitely we can darken the sky. Look at how much more dramatic. Notice there's cyan in the sky as well. You have to be careful you don't get a halo, right? See how there's a tiny little bit of outline starting there? So just back it off a little bit. So be very careful of halos when you darken colors this way, okay? And let's just see if magenta is doing anything. Okay, it's darkening this guy's shirt, which may or may not be a good thing, okay? I kind of want him to stand out a little bit more because erasing him later, we want him, we're going to get rid of him completely. We're going to get rid of all these people. We're going to try Gen erase and cross our fingers, right? So I'm going to leave his shirt a little brighter just so that the program can distinguish him. Okay, now dramatic. Now, notice what happened here. I'm just going to come over to the side so you can see this. See what happened here? Now I've got the clipping warnings on. And you can see that it's now clipping a little bit in the black where it wasn't after the last step. Okay, so it's added quite a bit of contrast. Right? It's also brightened the image. So I'm going to unbrighten or lower the brightness. But I do like what's happening here in the building, right? It's adding lots of contrast to the sky. And I think I'm just going to scale this one back a little bit. and possibly mask it off the sky, right? So we can use the masking tools here and use Mask AI. It did change the sky. Let's see. Big time green and purple chromatic aberration issues. Do you know the scientific reason why they're always green and purple? Yes, because you're the three colors that make up your image in photography is red, green, blue, right? So blue is basically what you're seeing focused, and the red and the green are unaligned. So that's why you're seeing them like that. That's my unscientific that's my unscientific explanation. I hope that helps. They're not Ed. I still have one more to build and I'm testing them out, but they will be available shortly. You will be the first to know on my email list. They'll probably be in the Skylum Marketplace as well. We're trying to get them in there. Did this change the sky? Which part, Janelle? We're trying to get them in the marketplace, but we'll put them on our website as well. So buy them from us. Buy them from us. We get more money that way. Okay. All right. So now I have a couple of ways to mask this. Let's choose architecture and see if it chooses just the building. Nope, chose everything. That doesn't work. So let's just choose. Oh, that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So right now, the tool is applying to everything except the building. So all I need to do is reverse it. Okay, so I'll just invert it. And now you can see that it is applying to the building. Okay. And if I want it a little bit on the sky, I could just come in and paint it over with, like, say 40% and a big brush. Sorry about that. I'm crying now. I was coughing. Okay. So the question that I asked was just joking on my own saliva. The preset you just used and the building was made so much darker. That was part of the preset and the dramatic tool. Okay, so I'm in the steps that the preset applied. I'm in the edit. Okay, so one of the tools I used was dramatic. Let me see. It is affecting the building. Notice it didn't pick up yet. So I'm just going to paint over the sky with 40%. So it's not affecting the building. Just so that I get maybe a little bit down here as well. So the rest of it's getting 40% and the building's getting 100%. So I'm adding a little bit more texture down in there. So see what it's doing before and after. So if you want to add drama to your images, dramatic tool, okay? Okay, then I added some details. Now what I could do again is I don't want to sharpen and add details to the sky, okay, just to the building. So I could actually copy the mask or just go back here again. Let's choose sky and take it off the sky. So again, I want to reverse, invert. So now this one is applying only there. Okay. I'm going to copy that one actually. Okay, then I did another develop. This is just all steps that I've used in the preset. Okay, this one is punching it up and brightening things. And this one I may decide to dial down as I don't need it as much. Okay. And it also allows you to adjust the blacks darker or lighter. Okay. adding a little bit of glow, adding a little bit of contrast, and then finally a vignette on the edge. Okay. Now we're kind of getting a little bit HDR-ish here because the shadows have been pulled up quite a bit. So I might come back down here. And it looks like I have not pulled the shadows up, so that's interesting. I'm just going to bring the smart contrast down a little bit. Notice when you come back down to the bottom of the edits, it takes you back to that step and what the image looks at that's like at that step. Okay. Then when you come back up to the top, it applies all of those edits. Okay. So there's a before and after. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off a little bit less. I'm going to erase it at about 50% from this side of the cathedral, because I find like there's too much contrast here in the shade. Like you don't get contrasty shade like that. Okay. So I'm just erasing it from that part. And I feel like that's more realistic. Okay. Because you'd get more contrast in the sun, right? Shade is a bit flatter. Okay, so now we're kind of happy with where we're at there. If you want to enhance the sky even more, you can go to Enhance AI and the Sky Enhancer. Okay, so now we can darken the sky. And I might do an even darker vignette, but let's see if we can get rid of these people. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. And look at how much we've been able to bring out the sky, right? So don't need a sky replacement. It's there, okay? So to get to the Gen tools or Gen Erase or Gen Swap, we have to go back to Catalog. And then we can just, excuse me. Then we can just select the image and then click on the tool that we want to use or drag it. Okay. So I clicked on, did I click on it? There we go. Okay, so this is Gen Erase. So it's going to analyze the image. And then we have to paint into the areas that we want to erase. I'm just going to put myself over here. So what is the answer of the poll, Rob? What's the consensus? Okay, to start Gen Erase, you have to draw around the stuff you want to erase. Now, unfortunately, the keyboard shortcut for zooming in and out does not work here, but you want to come into at least 50% so that you can make the most accurate selections. Okay, so I'm going to start by getting rid of this guy. So you want to paint around the object enough so that Luminar knows what is supposed to be there. Because if you get so tight to the edge of the object, it doesn't know the surroundings to fill it in with. Okay, so now we're just going to go erase, and this is the tool that does go up to the cloud. So you need to be connected to the internet to use this tool and to use Gen Swap. So the results says fewer than, you don't want to put that in the regular chat, Rob. Fewer than 12%. 50% of you said that. 25% or so is good. 37% said that. All the presets 12, and I can handle up to 100 0. So let me just copy that. Do you want to paste that into the chat, please, Rob? Ah, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so it removed. It's not perfect, but guess what? We can deal with that. You can see there's an edge there. We can deal with that using the clone tool later. Okay, so I'm just going to do a reset and then choose the next. Now these guys are kind of connected, and while I'm here, I'm going to get rid of that pole. Okay, so because they're overlapping, I want to get rid of all of these people at one time. So I'm just going to paint over them all. And when you're doing this, remember, you need to get what? His shadow as well. Okay, because if he's gone, what's there making the shadow? Okay, so you need to make sure you get his shadow if there's a shadow. Let's go erase. I find that this thing takes about 30 seconds usually, and the speed at which this works It has to do with your internet connection, not the speed of your computer. Okay, so it's sending this information up to the cloud to access information that they have on the Skylum servers, which I'm guessing is in Ukraine somewhere. And then it has to bring that information back to your computer. Okay. So the faster the internet speed you have, the faster this will work. So let's just do a test on my internet. Let's just see how fast my internet is. Okay. So we have fiber optic internet, and we've paid for extra high speed, so we should have pretty fast. Yeah. So we have screaming fast internet, as you could see, right? So this is the upload speed versus the download speed, right? So upload is what's sending to the server, and then download is what's coming back. So this is download, right? Download is usually faster than upload. So yeah, pretty fast. Okay, so now look at that. Okay, so people are saying this tool doesn't work. What do you think? It looks pretty good to me. Like, look at all of that. Filled in the rocks, the bricks, everything. Okay, now let's go over here and deal with these people. So once again, make sure you paint over all of them, including their shadow. I'm just gonna take out this planner box too. What the heck? Make sure I get all of the person. Oh, I thought that was somebody with a camera. No, there is a shadow here. It looks like from trees. So we don't have to worry too much about this person's shadow. But let's just make sure I get all of them. Like so. Don't want to miss a spot. There we go. I'm just going to do that. Okay, so even if it's not perfect, it's getting really, really close. And once we hit save on this tool, it makes us a new TIFF. Okay, so we're not editing the raw file anymore. We're not editing the raw file after we do this. So if you're going to use Gen Erase or Gen Swap, do all your edits like I did first, okay? Let's just wait for it to finish. Oh, see? Look at that, right? I think that's pretty darn impressive. Like, can you even tell? Look at. Can you even tell where? Look at. It's got the shadows filled in the bottom of that thing nicely. Whew, I'm impressed. Okay, so is there anything else that I need to fix? I mean, we could run this one more time over here. Yes, it doesn't let me zoom out. Let's say I run this around the edge here. Because I can just see sort of the edge of this guy, right? Let's run it one more time and see if we can blend that a little bit better. But if not, I'll just go and use the clone tool or the regular erase tool, okay? So the regular erase tool, there's another thing that came up in discussion about using AI tools. Is some people don't want to be connected to the internet for security reasons or what have you. So then just don't use these gen tools. If it says gen something, it means it's generating, so it's going to the internet. If you just use the regular erase tool, you're not. Okay. Yeah, see, we're still getting sort of an outline there. I'm not sure that that's any better than what I had before. So I'm just going to undo, and we're going to say, we're going to call it good enough for this. But look at, in general, it's pretty impressive, right? So I'm going to say save, and it's going to bring us a new TIFF. And when that happens, hopefully it's saving. Where did it go? Hopefully it's saving. I don't know what it's doing right now. There it is. So Holly says, are the gen results one of a kind? Good to see you, Holly. Yes. And then you could see some of the funny results that I've had using Gen Erase, right? This is some of the testing that I did to try and get rid of a bowl. There was a dog bowl here, and I got like, I don't know, a weasel, a hamster. There's a weasel. There's the hamster, a camera, and an Oreo cookie. I don't know. So it did some weird things for sure. but it also added foam into the coffee cup where there was none. Okay, so it's kind of hit and miss. This puddle also was not in the original image, so I created the puddle and the reflection. Okay, so you can do some really cool things with it. This one here was a completely different cup, and there was no steam. Okay, all right, so let's deal with our castle. Okay, so now once we open it, all I need to do is deal with this part here was great, I think. So I'm going to use the cloning tool. And I'm just going to zoom in here. So when you're cloning, you want to watch out for repeating patterns and things that kind of give it away as being cloned, okay? And things that make it look fake are repeating a pattern, okay? So if I make this pattern repeat up here, it's kind of a giveaway. So I'm going to keep my brush soft edge, maybe a little smaller. I just want to soften this edge here around so it doesn't look like a square, okay? So I'm going to go at about 40% opacity. And wherever you click at first is where it's going to, that's your source. So it's going to clone from here to wherever you put your mouse, okay? So I'm going to clone forward like this. See how that just kind of minimizes that edge? Then I'm going to go from the bottom up. No, I'm not happy with that one. I'm going to undo. I want to fix this dark area here. So I'm going to come from all the way over here. Okay, because when you have a repeating area that's close to each other, that's also a clue. Okay, so then I'm going to clone from a different area. So I'm constantly changing my source by clicking the Option key. Okay, so I'm going to move over. So Option here, I'm going to click from here and just try and minimize that dark area. And then here, like so. Okay, so see how that's better? There's still a kind of a light area in the middle here. So I'm going to start here and just darken it a bit. Okay, so that looks a little better. And then the same here. So I'm going to start here. Aha! See that? I made a boo-boo. You can see that line right there? So I got to make sure that when my mouse is on the edge here, that I start here. Okay, so I want to line them up. So like that. Line them up a little bit better. And that one's not so bad. Something like that. Okay, let's back out. So check it by backing out. Let's see the before and after. See how we've got the square. Oops. What's happening over there? Okay, I have no idea what's happening over here. But something got cloned over here for some reason. How did I clone over here? So I need to fix that. Unfortunately, I have to undo. So I got to undo. Oh, there we go. That was one undo. I did one undo and I fixed it. All right, so let's go from here. And I'm just going to kind of do a blanket swash. When you do a lot of cloning at a lower opacity, one thing you have to be careful about is it actually gets rid of texture. Okay, it ends up looking sort of smooth. Can you see that? So you can add a bit more texture in here. What I might come up and do is just pick on details and medium details. See how it's smooth in there? Small details. And then just paint it in to this area here because I've minimized the texture there. So bring it back up. There we go. So there's our before, just looking at this area, and after. Right. Remember I said I would like to darken the bottom part as well. So I really want to do a custom vignette. And the best way to do that is actually with the develop tool. So I'm actually going to just drag the exposure down and drag the blacks down. And I'm only looking at this bottom part. Okay. and the highlights down. So what I'm going to do is mask it using a linear gradient because I want it to come from the bottom edge. Something like that. Okay, so see how that's just darkening that bottom. Okay. Don't go like too far because there is sun. So you still need to have some sun just to take attention away from that area. Because remember, where does your eye go? Okay. Where does your eye go? Your eye goes to the areas which are sharp, which is the foreground, hopefully. And I might do a little bit of crop on this one. Come up a little bit from the bottom. And I don't think we need all these trees here. I really like a tight crop on the castle, I think. Something like that. Okay, so we can't get a true before and after. We have to come back and add this back into the folder. So it puts it into a folder on your internal drive called Generative Creations. And if you want to put it back where the original is, in this case, Iconic Locations, you just have to drag it into that folder. Okay, so now we can see there's the finished image and the before with the people. Okay, so it did a really good job getting rid of those people. What are you guys talking about? Cinnamon buns. Oh, good Lord. Your signature is cinnamon buns. Okay, you guys are killing me here. Now I want a cinnamon bun, Rob. 30 years ago, Rob used to work at a bakery. Yeah, cinnamon buns. We were in Savannah, Georgia. We were in Savannah, Georgia, 2010, and we went to this market that was out on the street, and we bought these cinnamon buns, or I bought a cinnamon bun, and it was so thin. The layers were so thin, and so much cinnamon and real butter. We made sure to ask the lady if she used real butter, and she did, so we bought it, and I took one bite and it was like, it was heavenly. And Rob wanted to taste. I said, nope, back off. Get your own cinnamon bun. So I made him go back and we bought some more and put them in our freezer in our RV. They were so good. Oh, you guys are killing me now. Vanilla pudding for icing. Interesting. Interesting. There was nuts in that one. I think probably walnuts. All right, so now we're doing food photography. You guys are killing me. So how do we like this edit? Okay, and if you want to give this one a tone like I did on some of the others, right? If we want to give it an antique look, there's a couple of great ways to do that. There's a LUT that's built into Luminar called Sepia, and it is in the Creative LUT section. Oh, I was going to show you guys how to do the skies too. Okay, it's in the Creative LUT section. You can see that I've added a bunch of custom LUTs that all show up here. There's the Sepia LUT, and then you can just drag the amount to whatever you want, right? But you can't change the color of this one. Okay, so the other way to make a sepia tone is the toning tool. So you can adjust the color of the shadows and the highlights. Okay, so to implement it, you need to start with dragging the saturation up and then set your color. So this one here, you can pick something towards the yellow scale. I like to set the shadows to be sort of an orangey tone, like so. And then usually I'll leave my highlights just clear white, okay? But we can actually see what that looks like if we apply the mood as well. Sepia. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Okay, kind of nice. It seems to lighten it overall. No, not bad. So there's more of a sepia tone. And if you want the texture overlay, you can add a texture overlay using the layers. Okay. I like the black and white here too, Marguerite. I think for subjects like this, it really, really brings out the texture. So black and white is all about light, right? Black and white for me. Somebody asked me why black and white portraits the other day, because I put out a model call for who wants to work with me and do some black and white portraits, and I've currently got 18 volunteers. So we may be having a black and white tutorial soon. But see you, Holly. Somebody asked me why black and white portraits, or why black and white, and I said, well, black and white for me, especially portraits, makes it about the subject. Okay, so black and white is all about just light. So it's taken away, the sky, which is colorful and vibrant in this case, and brought attention to the texture and the light on the castle, right? And by minimizing our edits on the sky, making it more contrasty, we keep the eye on the castle. Okay, so everything I'm doing is to bring out that castle. Same thing in a portrait, right? And as Danelle says, yeah, it's timeless, right? It's timeless, brings out the lines and the shapes and the composition. And when you are doing a portrait, it's all about the person then, okay? So it's not about the background, it's not about the clothing, it's only about the face, right? All right, let's see if we can do a few more here, because I'm not doing my fast edits today. So I did promise a sky replacement and show you how to do that. So Rob wants to see one of the Yosemite ones. So is it Yosemite? Yeah, Yosemite. Let's go with the waterfall one, I think, because we could do a sky on this. Okay, so first thing I want to do is go to develop raw when we are starting from scratch, right? And I'm going to turn the clipping warnings on because I already anticipated that this waterfall was blown out. Okay, is it sharp? Yes, but it doesn't look sharp because it's blown out. Okay, so we want to fix that. This is the only place you'll see camera profiles in Luminar Neo, so we can take a look and see. Just going to turn those warnings off. Turn the clipping warnings off. There we go. We can see if there's any of these that I want to use instead. So camera deep actually changes the sky. I almost never use vivid. Landscape also usually darkens the sky, but it's bringing out the greens really nice. So look at that. Okay, so I'm not even doing anything, just changing the profile. This is Edward's image, by the way. Just changing the profile on this one makes a world of difference. Okay, so now I want to solve this problem of clipping. So I'm using the J key and just bringing the highlights down. Right? I might bring the whole exposure down a little bit as well, because we actually want, when you're exposing for a scene like this, you want to make sure nothing is clipping. Okay, so when you would have looked at this in your camera histogram when you're shooting it, okay, if you see that and you see that water is flashing at you, it's called the blinkies. He was here. Hopefully he'll see it later. If you see the blinkies, right, that means you need to darken the whole exposure to get your highlights under control. Okay. Now in this case, it's not a problem. There's lots of latitude in the raw file. We can pull that down. Okay. But you can see that it's about almost a stop overexposed. Okay. And there's still plenty of detail in those shadows, because we're not concerned about detail in these trees. Our subject is that waterfall and that side of that dome, right? The side of that mountain. So we want our eyes, it's framing it nicely, right? But keep the trees dark. Okay. So the trees go dark, your subject is here. Okay. Let's go a little bit darker. See how it's darkening the sky as well, because the sky is a highlight. Okay. So I'm just doing a dance between brightness and darkness. Okay. Now I want to make sure that the chromatic aberration is on. Right. I don't see any here, so maybe we don't need it. No, looks pretty good. It's more typical on a wide angle lens than on a long lens like this. Okay. If you're not sure why I know it's a long lens, I can take a look at this on Lightroom, because it's easy to see. Where are we? This one here. Okay, it's 117. That's not right. Let's see. 1700. No, that's not right either. Let me try that again. I just want to see the focal length of the lens. I think it's 175. 17. Interesting. Okay, prove me wrong. All right, it's a 17 mil. So it's a 224. Okay, how is that possible? Edward, how is that possible? It says that it's a 17 mil lens, but then the lens it says is 24 to 200. Explain me that. Explain me that, Edward. How is it that the focal length is wider than the actual lens? I'm a bit confused. Explain me that. Okay, so see, now I'm rethinking the camera profile because for me, the blue is too much. Okay, it's gone too far. Okay, so what I could do is come into color and I'm just going to dial the vibrance down or the saturation down a little bit. That helps. And I'm also going to warm it up a little bit because it feels really cold. Okay, so we could choose daylight from this list here. It's gone a little bit on the green side. Can you guys see that color? Okay, so you need to have a monitor that's properly calibrated. I think is that something I talk about in the 10 ways to better photography, Rob? I forget what's in there. But when you have a monitor that's out to lunch color-wise, what you're looking at on your screen is not necessarily the actual color of the image. Okay, so for me, that looks green. If that does not look green on your screen, you need to either calibrate your eyes. Also, when you're color correcting, make sure that you don't have glasses with a color tint. I've seen that happen as well, where people had literally, I kid you not, rose-colored glasses. So it was filtering out the pink, right? So all their images looked pink to them. So they actually added more green, which is the opposite color, right? So all their images were green. So be careful of tinted glasses. That's all I'll say. Okay, so that looks a little better for color. So now that's where we're at. And honestly, there's not a lot more to do here, right? I might add a little vignette, maybe some extra texture. Okay, so we could do some structure. And I would dial this into just the mountain because, again, where you want the viewer's eye to go is where you want a texture to appear and sharpness. So I'm going to use the Mask AI. And no, Mask AI is not going to the cloud. It's just analyzing your image. Okay. So I'm going to choose mountains. And let's see what it picks. Looks pretty good to me. Okay. So I'm going to copy it so I don't have to do that again. Okay, so now we're just adding some texture to the mountains. Okay. And I could do the same thing with details. I could also do the opposite. I don't know why I have a frog in my throat today. I could do the opposite and give everything else a little bit of a blur. Okay, so see what medium details is doing? I'd like to bring this one up a little bit. And then, of course, we're going to paste in the mask, so just to the mountains. See that? Again, bringing out texture in the mountain. And then I'm going to use, we could do minus structure or minus details. Actually, let's do minus details. So I'm going to go small, medium, large to the minus size. Watch the trees. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so watch the details on the trees. What I'm looking for is I want the trees to be less sharp. You see that? So I'm going to paste in the mask, which goes on the mountain, and then invert it. Okay. I'll go extreme just so you can see what it's doing. See how it's blurring the trees and not the mountain? Because of that mask that I used. So I'm just softening the details on the edge so that your eye goes more into the middle. Okay. See that? So now we've got before and after. Okay, now we don't need a sky replacement on this one because it's a beautiful sky. But what if you want a nice fluffy cloud? Okay. You could add a cloud if you have a layer that has an object cut out that has a cloud. And there are clouds that you can download, or you can make your own cutout cloud. I can't remember if I have a cloud or not. I got lots of texture overlays. I don't usually add clouds, to be honest. I'll just do a sky replacement. So let's do a sky replacement because I want to show you how to add your own skies. Okay. Uh-oh. I got the spinny wheel of death. Hopefully it's not going to crash. I clicked on too many things. Let's just see. Next week is people. There shouldn't be one showing iconic places for next week. I switched them around, Danelle. I'm not sure if you were, yeah, you were here early. So I switched them around because next week's topic of people goes with, more coincides with what we're doing with our promotion for December. Your optician tried to sell you tinted glasses until you told him you were a photographer. These are tinted. They get dark, but they don't change color, right? And I don't generally wear these when I'm editing. I just wear them on screen because they have less reflection than my other ones. When the other ones have no tint. Before I had cataracts removed, I asked the surgeon for lens replacement if you wanted to were colorless, as I identified as a photographer. Awesome. So you're on it. Okay, let's try sky again. There we go. Okay, so sky selection. So when you want to add a sky, these are the ones that Luminar is suggesting. You know how to get to your other sky collections. So these are all sky collections that I have added. So if you are creating your own, this is what you need to do. Okay, go show custom skies, and it takes you to the folder where you need to put them. Okay, can you see this? So I want to show you this. See all these different names here? Okay, make note. See all those names? Okay. Now if I go back to Luminar, look at same names. Okay, so show custom skies takes you to this folder called custom. If you make your own ones, put them in a folder. Okay, so call them Danelle's skies or my skies or whatever. Okay, Edward skies. Okay, and put them into a folder. So there's our sky packs that you can purchase in our ultimate editing bundle and so on. Okay, there's lots that came with Luminar. But if you want more and you want to create your own, just make a subfolder in here. And then, here, I'll do an example for you. I'll just make another subfolder. I'm going to make a new folder inside here called Test Skies, just for you guys. And I'm going to copy one. Okay, so I'm just going to copy one of these from another set and put it in here. Okay, so I'm going to copy it into the test sky folder. Okay, then when I come back to Luminar, they're alphabetical. Look, test skies, and there it is. So I didn't even have to exit Lightroom or Luminar. I didn't even have to exit and come back. All I had to do was put it in that folder, and Luminar sees it like that. How cool is that? Rob, if I haven't already got this on the list of making stuff for videos, I need to do this. Okay, so let's take a look at our number one sky pack and see if there's anything in here. We could add a cloud. I think there's some better. I don't have a lot of white fluffy cloud skies. But let's see if this one works. Right, keeping in mind, again, where the light is coming from. The light is coming from here, from the right, okay? So you either need to avoid the sun in your pictures, okay, because we don't want that, okay? That's not going to work because I know that the sun is not behind the mountain, right? A sunset is not going to work. So some of these ones that are built into Luminar that have these puffy clouds, these are the ones that are going to work better for this kind of image, I think, okay? There, look at that. Okay, so that is better. And notice how this one blended a lot easier because there's a clear delineation and difference between the object and the sky. In the one of the palace, it had trouble discerning the difference because they were the same tone. Okay, so we can still use the sliders to double check. Okay, I want to make sure that it's going below that spot there. Okay, and then I can just decide, okay, do I want it to go this way? Okay, so the light is more coming from this way. Maybe something like that. Right? And we just want to check that it's blending nicely around these trees. So if we're going to have a challenge, it's going to be around the trees. But it looks pretty good based on the mask refinement. Okay? I don't know why it's not focusing. Fix details. If you're missing little twigs, okay? Let's zoom in and out. Focus. There we go. Right? So now you could see there's a tiny little bit there. So if the tree is missing, or if you've got white bits around the tree, use the closed gaps. But I don't see any issues. Okay. Aha. My adjustments on the mountain have made it clipping. So I'm going to fix that. Okay. Now I have the option of scenery lighting. So if I want to add more blue, I'm going to lower that. There's no reflections. Okay. Atmospheric haze just softens the sky a little bit, so it's not quite so intense. So it does kind of lower the contrast. Okay. So even though there's not a contrast slider, you can use this one here to give it a little bit more softness, like so. Okay, so I am going to fix that issue with the mountain clipping. Okay, so now I just need to go back a couple steps because my guess is when I added some of these things, okay, so I can see that the water is clipping a tiny little bit. That one's fine. That one's fine. It looks fine now. Okay, so it was clipping. If I want to bring the highlights down, I can either add a new version of Develop, or I can go back to the beginning and darken the highlights there. Okay. And just wait for it to catch up. I did turn the highlights off. Come on. Okay, now it's telling me that it's clipping again. Let's try one more time. Okay, so it looks like the sky, for whatever reason, is brightening that mountain. Right? So let's just darken. Yeah, it's adding some brightness overall. Okay, so that's why I turned the scenery lighting all the way down, because for some reason it's affecting the mountain as well. Okay, so we got a little bit of clipping there, and I'll just come back into Develop, dial it down, and I could even just mask it into those areas. Okay, so I'm just going to paint into the highlight areas that are clipping. So I'm not dulling the rest of the image, because when you bring your highlights down overall, you sort of dull the image and take away that contrast that we worked so hard to build up. Okay, so here's our full after image. And of course, I might do one of my favorites, which of course is Mystical. And I love this one on landscape photos. Right? It literally makes everything dreamy. But we could apply this one a couple of different times, actually. Let's do Mystical to a high level. And I'm just going to put it on the water. Okay, so we get this kind of glow. I'm just going to do a radial gradient. Now be careful because it might brighten. So if you're doing this one, make sure that we don't overly brighten. No, we're good there. Okay, so we're adding some glow to the water. See that? If I come in just a little bit, watch the water. See that? So I'm going to apply it once to the water and then once again. I've lost it. There it is. I usually have it in my favorites. Once again, at a lower amount overall in the whole image. Okay. We can actually darken the shadows here too and add a sort of a vignette. There we go, which I haven't done. I could add a vignette as well. So vignette is usually one of the last things that I do. So I bring the feather down, check the positioning. We haven't even cropped this image, Edward. So your cropping and your original composition is fantastic. Okay, so now look at the difference. Right? Let me just put this in full screen. Okay. Here's our before. Okay, so can you see how overexposed it is now and after? So look where your eye goes. So your eye goes to that cloud, but it's not overly bright. We could probably choose a different sky that doesn't have a big bright cloud, maybe some wispy clouds, but it kind of goes nicely with the water, but your eye goes right into the middle of that picture. Okay? There's so much going on here, okay? Big difference, right? Rob says a video for what? Yes, Mike picked it up. So please add this to our spreadsheet, Rob. Doing a custom sky replacement and how to make your own custom skies and add them to Luminar. There is a lesson in the class as well, Marguerite. Yes, and I do show how to do that in the Luminar Neo course. So yes, good point on that one. Let me get out of full screen mode here. So if you are taking our Luminar Neo course, which again is on sale this week. Okay, so you have till the 7th. This is the countdown timer, and then these sale items will be not on sale anymore. So if you're taking our Luminar Neo course, these kinds of things are covered in great detail, including I give you a few sky replacement images to practice with as well. Okay, let's see. Am I missing anything else? That's not the point, Ed. You're supposed to learn how to do this for yourself. So now you see this. Take a screenshot. Take a screenshot while it's on your screen. I'm going to wait for you to do that. I'll even get myself off the screen here. Oops. Nope, this way. Take a screenshot. Okay. That's what you need to create. Okay. What's the price on sale? Well, it's $47, Rob. Let me get back over here. Where did I go? It's on for $47. Okay, so if you buy just the course, $47. If you want it with the editing bundle, $104. Okay, so $104 buys you 2 sky packs, which is I think 50 skies, 2 bokeh packs, which is like 50 bokehs, and something like 50 textures. So you get like 150 overlays and skies and the course if you get the big bundle. Okay. If you already have our course, then consider picking up the editing bundle. If you bought the old editing bundle, this is the same one. It's just got 2 new items added to it. Okay. So if you already have the old editing bundle, don't get this one. You've already got most of those items. Okay. Thanks, Danelle. Thanks so much for that. There should be a link for you in the chat, Kathleen, if you want to check it out. And you could just go to our main website, digitalphotomentor.com, but Rob's going to put another link. Marguerite says, when I do courses, I have to watch the lessons several times to understand. And thank you. Yes, I know you have the Luminar Neo course. So they are there for you forever, basically. And the course is always being updated as well. So all of the new stuff is being added to the course. I'm actually going to be doing one for Studio Light right after we sign off today. So that one's going to be added shortly. And I've been holding off on Super Sharp and on the Jenna Race ones. I wanted to kind of see how they evolved a little bit, but I'm going to add them to the course so that all the new students coming in have the new stuff, right? And of course, there's lots of videos on our YouTube channel here as well in our Luminar Neo editing, Luminar Neo playlist. That's it. Thanks, Ed. You know what? I sometimes learn from myself. So it's always good to learn something, right? So I think we've done a lot of good work today and covered a lot of different things, right? So I'm just going to head back here because I want to, where did I go? No, I'm going to head back here because next week we are doing people. And I just want to remind everybody, so people next week, I do have a few images, but if you want to send some more, I've got these really cute ones that got submitted. I think, is that Danelle's? I can't remember who submitted that one, but they just came in this week. Danelle's, yeah. So we've got some cutie patooties here from Danelle. And I'm going to try and put these two images together. So let me just show you what I'm going to attempt. I've done this already once for this person who it was Thai, and I'm going to try and put these images together in Luminar. So they're a family picture that was missing two people, and they wanted to cut these ones out and put them in this picture. So that's what we're going to attempt next week. So if you want to see how to do that, definitely you want to tune in. Okay. So if you have ever run into that situation, okay, there's some also key things I'm going to give you in terms of making sure when you do the photos, what you do to make sure that they fit together, because those ones don't fit together all that well, but I'm going to do the best. I'm going to do the best that I can. It does not want to go full screen on me. Let's try this again. There we go. So next week, people photos, please submit your people photos this week, and we'll be doing that next week. Rob, please, a link to submit their images. It's Digital Photo Mentor //live. Can you do the green screen process in Lightroom and Photoshop? Yes, that's how I did it for him as a test, just to see if I could do it. And even Photoshop had trouble cutting out the green screen. And honestly, green screen is not the best option if you have to cut somebody out. Even just gray is better. All you need is contrast between them and the background. And what I'm finding is it's hard to get rid of the green, and we end up with this little glow of green around them. So it's kind of tricky. But we're going to do it with Luminar next week, and I can show you the same process. It's the exact same process with Lightroom and Photoshop, right? Again, Rob is reminding everyone that the links to the submission and also for next week's live, if you want to bookmark, it's youtube.com/digital photo mentor /live. That's the page where the next live always will be. So you can bookmark that in your favorite browser and get to it easily. Okay. So I'm going to end there. Thanks for that, Stephanie. That's a perfect ending. I got to get my thumbs together. So that's a perfect ending. I'm going to call it quits for today and say thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone for submitting this week, last minute. I appreciate your submissions. Some great images. It was fun to work on those today. So we didn't do very many, but I think we went deep on this one, right? So we did a deep dive on iconic photo locations, and I've still got more that I can use another time, or I can use them on some other topics that are fitting as well, like water. So take care, and we'll see you next week. Check out our sale on our Luminar Neo course only until the 7th, end of day 7th. So check that out before that one disappears. Hit that like button as Stephanie was giving a thumbs up on the video as well. Take care.